This is the first time that I am looking at Arc Raiders. After my livestream chat was pestering me about it, I caved and decided to watch some trailers, promos, and content creator feedback. These are my raw first impressions, and I hope you guys enjoy. Let me look at some Arc Raiders gameplay here real quick.
Arc Raiders is a multiplayer extraction adventure set in a distant future here on Earth.
Okay.
Players start in Speranza, one of the few places in the Rust Belt that is relatively safe from Arc machines that occupy the surface. There are thousands of people living down here, and there is always a need for vital materials from the world above. The raider we are following is on a quest, a job to obtain a seed vault from a research facility deeper into the city. A red flare is a signal of a raider getting knocked down. But you never really know what happened there until you go look. Could have been a fight between raiders or Arc. You never know.
Wasp over there.
So is this just the Division? The only like extraction shooter that I've played so far to date that I actually like found myself really enjoying and sinking a good amount of time into was Deadrop. And that project was dropped dead, so
it is wise to
and I think a big part of the reason why I liked it is because it had a lot more to do with it leaned so much more heavily into like the side of like the BR style of things, which I think I generally prefer over like the traditional extraction shooter style.
Making friends in the Rust Belt is not easy, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
Yo, this person has ass aim, dude. I think they've missed every single shot so far. Also, why even bother trying to take those shots with a pistol? Like the damage fall off is gonna be crazy.
This is it. Some plastic.
Looks like they got what they came for. And now it's time to get out of here. Everything that you find will be lost if you don't make it out alive. But raiders know this. It's what they do. Raider, contact.
Kill a player, flare shoots off, lots of movement and trap mechanics to lure PvE to a location so you can use the PvE to your advantage when in a shootout. While I'm not saying that is impossible, and it would have to be something like, maybe I'm just being pessimistic, but it would have to be something that I would have to like see. I'm gonna guess that that's something that probably wouldn't happen too terribly often. Like if it's something that has to be intentionally done, then probably not something that's going to happen too terribly often. If it's something that happens just as a byproduct of shootouts happening, I'm guessing that's just going to piss people off more than anything else. Because you're going to be, in my head, the way that plays out, it is people are in the middle of a gunfight. It's an intense gunfight. They're really having to go back and forth with each other a lot. Lots of heals are being used. Lots of resources are being expended. And then in the midst of it, you have to turn around. You have to turn your back to your enemy as you're fighting, and you have to shoot your way through a bunch of PvE, expending more resources to probably not get an equivalent return, and hope that the other team isn't pushing you in the process because they know you're trapped in a way that they aren't. Like, to me, that, like, in theory, it sounds cool. In application, I don't know how effectively that like, it depends on how they implement it, but I feel like that'd be pretty hard to implement in a way that feels fun. Like that was one thing that that Deadrop kind of experienced. Like towards the end of the game, you had the cleaners coming out, and people were just fucking sick of them. They fucking hated it because it was like tail end of the game. You have crazy amounts of loot that you've stacked up. There's only a few other people left. Everyone's fighting in a very small area, and then the cleaners are like everywhere, shooting at you the entire time. Like the PvE aspect of the end game for like a match of Deadrop just made people so mad. It's traps and grenades. If you push when the PvE is engaged with the other team, you can pull aggro. So you can't push too aggressively. It's more for escape. Gotcha. So you're saying that the actual sounds of like the normal combat aren't drawing them in? It's just when you're using traps and grenades? Like there are specific types of traps and grenades that will draw the enemies towards them?
Engaging in firefights may sometimes be the only way out of a tight spot. Other times, being cautious and staying out of sight is the better option to make it out.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. If these guys I'm assuming maybe that's PvE enemies, but if these guys right here are actual players and they aren't noticing this dude and this person, that's what staying out of sight looks like, that's fucking crazy. These guys are blind as a bat and they deserve to die.
Staying out of sight is the better option to make it out. For raiders hoping to thrive, the Rust Belt is filled with opportunities and secrets, if you know where to look. You'll have to stay vigilant up there on the surface, where an armada of ARC machines roam unchecked, where motives of other raiders remain dangerously unclear.
There's also boss
You'll need to be
PvE.
resourceful, work with what you have, and sometimes make plans on the fly. What are you prepared to risk to get what you want? Ultimately, you get to decide what kind of raider you'll become, shaping your own legacy, your raider, and your home.
What does Shroud have to say? Why is Arc Raider so fun, Shroud?
We gotta get this building, I think. Come. The building's locked. There's a locked door. Down in the hole, boys. Ah! Yo, what? Oh, GG. No. I'm dead. Thank you for pulling aggro. Holy. Ah, shit. Oh, God.
You sure about the wings?
Ow, it almost one-shot me.
I have no ammo.
Two down.
All dead. All dead.
They're all dead.
All of them?
Yeah.
Oh,
What's up, mother guys? What's up, mother guys?
Arc Raiders will revolutionize the most polarizing genre in gaming.
Something about it was just different than all the rest. Almost special in a way that's indescribable.
Posted 3 days ago. What do you got to say about it above?
Done so well that it's actually hard to encapsulate what you love about it so much. That secret sauce that is so difficult for game developers to get right. We've all had that feeling at one point or another, but where I didn't expect to find this was during a tech test for a game that hadn't even announced its release date yet. Back in April, Arc Raiders held a 5-day public tech test to gather vital community feedback on key game systems such as progression, combat, performance, and more. It left such a lasting impression on me that I'm venturing out of my usual Destiny roots to cover this game as a mainstay on the channel. Arc Raiders has that secret sauce.
Okay, he's a Destiny player. I shouldn't listen to anything he has to say.
I'll be showcasing why it's easily my most anticipated game for the remainder of 2025. So what is Arc Raiders? The game was originally announced as a third-person PvE looter-shooter, somewhat similar to what you'd expect from The Division. However, Embark Studios, who many know for their development of the finals, delayed and iterated the game into the extraction shooter we
I
know
didn't realize
today.
this. I didn't
You
realize
can
that this
tell
was made
how
by the
much
developers of
time,
the finals.
effort, and care they've put into their game because they've been cooking. Arc Raiders took over Twitch seemingly out of nowhere.
Shroud said the problem with most extraction shooters is the immense learning curve. Tarkov is so good, but not for new players because there are so many items and builds and mechanics. He said Arc Raiders has good depth, but is also easy for new players to get into.
Viewers seem to find Arc Raiders much more approachable and watchable than other extraction shooters before.
Well, look at that. He said the exact same thing.
The genre is known for its hardcore nature and intense gaming experiences that can give you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. The thought of losing hard-earned loot can understandably be a major deterrent for a lot of people, but Arc Raiders disrupts this formula in a very good way. This balance can be attributed to a couple different things. The first is a simplification of the survival aspect that typically intimidates players from trying extraction shooters in the first place. You aren't surgically repairing limbs, worrying about dehydration, or managing hunger levels. Your only concern is making sure your health bar never hits zero. The second selling point is the wide range of
Which again, I think is like, that kind of leans into the side of what I liked about Deadrop, is because like you were actively looting, you were trying to find good stuff, you were taking out other people that brought in their stuff, hoping that they would have good things as well. But like, it had a lot more to do with just the gun, not the gunplay, but just like the fight to fight like scenarios. It had way more to do with that than anything else, which made it feel really, really enjoyable for me personally. So maybe if this is the feedback that people are giving, maybe it's something that I should give a shot. But
systems, from an in-depth skill tree that can truly diversify your playstyle as you level up, to mastery objectives that passively earn you XP and unlock badass crafting recipes, to quest lines that unlock vendor upgrades, to even a consumer-friendly battle pass similar to the Helldivers model that unlocks cosmetics and rewards you for just playing the game. So even if a couple raids don't go your way, you're always making progress. They even give you an early game resource companion named Scrappy, a rooster that constantly loots basic necessities from the surface for you, giving you a steady flow of things like weapon parts, medical supplies, and other craftables that help you get right back into the action. Now, progression systems are great, but if you don't find the world interesting, none of it really matters. And it may sound like I'm glazing the studio at this point, but I was genuinely immersed in the universe right away. You quickly learn that Earth has been overrun by a sort of alien mechanized threat known as the Ark, a group—
That's one thing that I will say as well about about like thematically with like different worlds and stuff that you're wanting to like jump. Sci-fi type worlds aren't really a crazy pull for me, which is ironic. Well, I mean, I guess sci-fi and like science fiction, science fantasy are two different things, and like Star Wars is definitely science fantasy. So like I really do like Star Wars. This is definitely more sci-fi, and sci-fi has always been a bit of a harder sell for me. It's not something that is a deal breaker by any means, but it is not the type of world that I am more naturally inclined to just become immersed in. Not to say that it can't happen. I'm just saying that in the way that I generally play and enjoy games, this isn't a factor that would probably play in its favor for me personally, but you know.
Mysterious interconnected robots that hunt down humans and essentially make the Earth's surface uninhabitable. You're constantly evading the Ark patrolling the surface, also known as Topside, while simultaneously battling other human colonies that are competing for those same scarce resources for survival. It's a gritty and believable story that grabs your attention within just minutes of turning on the game.
That I don't. This probably comes down a lot more to the type of player that like someone is personally. Like vague world lore, I could not care less about. Like I don't give a fuck in the games that I play, generally speaking, what the world lore is. The only exception to that I can think of is like if the characters, specific characters really captivate me in a major way because of their own personal journeys, then by extension of going like through the lens of those characters, I can get somewhat immersed in the world lore itself. Like a good example of that would be 2018 God of War, because Mimir is constantly expo dumping, but his delivery and like all of the things that he's talking about are things that are a reflection on him and being like, you know, the world's smartest man. All of those things kind of like, he's a storyteller, but he's a storyteller that lived through a huge amount of these things, and you get bits and pieces of like that world lore that's being like amongst the world lore and expo dumps that are being dropped into it. All these kernels of like who Mimir is as a character are being sewed into it, which is what allows me to get invested in what he's saying, despite the fact that it's just a lot of world lore stories being told. If you're expecting me to become immersed in like a world for like the environment's sake, I just won't. I don't engage with worlds in that capacity. And that has a lot more to do with me than it does with like I'm not saying that like the lore itself is bad, because I don't know. It's just, it is not an aspect of the game that is going to draw me in. It's probably a good thing that exists, because I know plenty of people who get invested in that type of stuff. I'm just saying it's not a selling point for me.
And the world feels alive. Tension is a crucial part of extraction shooters that so many developers get wrong, but the Ark are genuinely terrifying. What may seem like a harmless patrol drone is actually a built-in alarm system that interconnects our foes, quickly calling in larger groups of robots for reinforcements that will swarm you in a matter of minutes. These enemies are brutal and completely change the way you approach the game. There is a fine balance between finding the right times to PvP, loot high-tier areas, or take a more covert approach to just get your quests done. As you become more experienced at reading this information, the easier the game becomes, giving a sense of skill expression for how you maneuver about the map. And the maps themselves are beautiful. They take full advantage of Unreal Engine 5, giving us massive explorable landscapes.
Oh no, it's another UE5 project, guys. Everyone's gonna be getting 30 frames a second with their 5090s.
maps with dynamic weather and post-apocalyptic vibes that actually feel believable. It's not overly decayed or grayscaled like in other games. It's weathered, overgrown, and eerie in the best of ways.
This is okay. I will say that is one thing. Like when you're talking about art style in a game, it is pretty interesting. Like, because this is definitely kind of meant to be a bit of a post-apocalyptic type world. Like that's kind of the vibe that it seems to be giving off. And I think in those types of games, it's very, very easy to kind of get lost in like the drab, like, how does this thing on like the color palette scale distinguish itself from everything else that also exists in that type of like world? You know, other games that exist in that type, like how does your game visually distinguish itself from everything else? Like if you were to look at for like half a second like an image of like two images of two different games that were both in post-apocalyptic worlds popped up, would you be able to immediately tell the difference between the two of them? And let's make the assumption that whoever's looking at these images has played both of the games in the past. If you can't, are you doing a good enough job with your artistic expression in the game? I would argue that you're not, but admittedly, it is harder to execute that in specific types of environments, and this would probably be one of them. Looking at this, I do like the fact that it's not just like full grayscale and like what he's talking about. Like there's a bit more vibrance that comes into it, which I appreciate. I don't like it when games just go full like grayscale to like, oh, this is a dark, scary world. Oh my gosh, you're never gonna get over how abysmal and terrible this world is. Like that. All post-apocalyptic worlds look like that. It's boring. It's overdone. This does look like it has a little more vibrance to it, which is nice. And visually, I think I would be more inclined to stick with.
The maps are large enough to give a healthy balance between PvE and PvP, and are dense enough to make the world feel truly immersive. The building you see on the horizon is explorable space. It's not just a bunch of empty POIs with filler in between, it really does leave a ton of room for exploration. There were 3 maps included in the tech test back in April, with both
UE5 has a lot of great stock assets, and it's pretty easy for studios to be lazy with artistic styling. Yeah. The amount of just like, and again, it's hard too. Like a lot of this goes into like color theory, which is something that I really, really do want to learn about, because I think color theory is huge when it comes to creating expectations for what your style of content is going to be, like what types of emotions or expectations different color schemes create. There's a lot of really, really interesting literature out there on the idea of color theory and how like it's used in like advertising a lot, how specific colors make people elicit specific feelings and emotions from people. And if you can learn how to implement that effectively in like an art style for a game, like it unconsciously creates a level of expectation for people of what it is that they're going to be experiencing. And if the actual experience, like the gameplay loop experience, matches pretty closely with like the visual expectations that you are creating with like your color usage and contrast, I think that's a multiplicative factor that has a lot of potential to probably increase how well a game is going to sell. Obviously, when you have a company like this that is, you know, they already have like a track record of putting out a game that people really enjoyed, it's easier to sell something, you know, when you have a good track record. But I digress, you know.
It's also worth noting that these maps have dynamic extract timers that change every single raid. This helps randomize the flow of the maps a bit and prevents extract campers from sitting in one place for an entire game.
I do like that. I'd be curious to know, is it random in the same way that like circle drops in BRs are random. Like, there is randomness to it, but the more you play, the more you understand the way that, like, that randomness is being, like, it's not random. There is a pattern to things that even if you can't, like, particularly quantify it, like, in actual words, if you play something for long enough, you have a really good idea of how those things actually end up playing out, just because you have a sense that has been attuned to the game and the way that it plays out. I'd be curious to know how long it takes people to dial into the way that the different extraction timers work. The intent of this is to keep people from camping extraction points, but if people, as soon as people become aware of the way those patterns work, it's gonna be hard to stop that from happening. Which, again, like, I've not played a crazy amount of extraction shooters, so it's very possible that this is like a market improvement over other ones. I've not played many extraction shooters, so I'm probably just being, like, overly critical of a genre that I am just not super familiar with.
And then we have the world bosses. This is such a cool wrinkle in the extraction shooter genre because these aren't your typical map bosses you'd see in games like Escape from Tarkov. These are massive raid boss level enemies that typically require coordination across several teams to take down. And as you can imagine, this presents a unique dynamic that forces enemy teams to either work together or betray each other in hopes of taking all of that loot for themselves. The Queen is incredibly strong and has multiple attacks that can easily wipe entire squads in a matter of seconds.
Oh, damn!
There was a world boss in the tech test is insane in its own right, and I get hyped thinking about what types of enemies and mechanics they've been holding close to their chest because they don't want to spoil them for the full launch of the game.
That I don't know about. I don't know if I want to give that particular take any credence. It has not been it's not unheard of for developers to, in some type of closed test, put out something that, like, really sells as many aspects of the game as possible, and then people get really excited expecting more from launch, and then the launch doesn't really have that much more. I feel like there's potential for unmet expectations with that type of mentality. Again, these developers have goodwill with the community because the finals did really well. People enjoyed the finals, but this is definitely a much different project than the finals, so it's not impossible for them to make a misstep like that. What makes a game likely to piss someone off is having unmet expectations. And if you're creating the expectation of this is what the game is likely to have, but then you don't follow through in exceeding what you've already teased, then people are going to be like, well, what the fuck? There was supposed to be I thought there was going to be a lot more here. And even if the content that's there is good, people will be upset because their expectations weren't met. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. I could be wrong, but, like, I feel like that type of mentality is what's more likely to cause people to be upset with a game at launch. This is not a one-to-one comparison because obviously this is functional and this is what people were playing. But if you compare it to, like, Cyberpunk 2077, like, if you looked at, like, the tech demo that they showed off for that game, saying, like, there are so many features that they showed off in that, like, tech demo that just straight up did not exist in the game at launch. That's an extreme example because people didn't get their hands on that and got to experience those features that just were then absent. Like, obviously people are playing this. This is like a fully functional world boss that exists. But that's just an example of that mentality being put in place. If you create expectations, you have to meet them and ideally exceed them. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good the experience is. Unmet expectations, which are dictated heavily by the way that you market a game and what you choose to reveal, are very much so what inform whether or not people are going to like the game, regardless of its quality.
And that alone gets me so excited for launch. Similar to the way people feel about extraction shooters, third-person gameplay can also be a major turnoff for a lot of players. I'm an FPS enjoyer at heart, but the gameplay was honestly so good that I didn't really think about it while playing. As hard as it can be to try and set aside those preconceived notions, I genuinely encourage you to give this game a chance. It feels polished, the gunplay reminds me a lot of the peak
No, I don't think I will.
zone days in the Division, and the movement is just a cherry on top. Between mantling, sliding, rolling, grappling, and even ziplines, there is so much skill expression here, and it just makes the game fun to play. It doesn't
Okay, I like myself some good movement. I will never deny that. I like myself some good movement in games, all right? So that's a good selling point for me. I like that.
Take itself too seriously, and that's what I think makes it so special. Before I go, I'm gonna rapid fire some of the intricate details that really stood out to me, starting with the game's sound design. If I had to give a direct comparison, I'd easily put it in the same tier as Battlefield 6, and that may sound crazy.
That does kind of sound crazy. I'm not even gonna lie. That sounds kind of crazy. Like, Battlefield in particular has, like, they have historically insanely good sound design. That sounds like a glaze, if I'm being honest. Like, I mean, I didn't play this closed test, but
Embark genuinely cooked here. They even dropped a Soundscapes audio compilation on their YouTube channel last week that's already approaching 100,000 views, and these are some of my favorite audio bits from that video as a sneak peek of what I'm talking about. It's just so good, man. Did you know that almost all
that
of
does
the
sound
Ark
pretty good.
enemies
I
have
can't even
some
lie.
sort of unique strength and weakness, and that some of these enemies even have special loot interactions? Whether it be weak points,
Constant
that
movement
affect
and
an
rotating,
enemy's
since
flight
you usually
control,
have a good
a
idea where the
weapon
other
archetype
teams
that
are
excels
and
against
can
some of the
usually guess where they're
tanky
headed.
bosses, or a little Roomba that may look harmless but will actually light you on fire if you get too close. But when you kill it, it'll give you materials that can either be used for crafting or used in raid as a throwable weapon. And did you know that if you lose a fight with one of these enemies and get down near an extract, you can actually crawl into the elevator and use this unique interaction to successfully extract while downed? It's a minor detail, but one of many that add up to
That's
make
cool.
this. What remains to be seen is if Embark can nail that long-term hook that has made games like Escape from Tarkov
So many
popular
rubber
for
ducks.
the better part of 10 years now. If they can stick the landing on the endgame, I truly believe Ark Raiders will join some of the giants in the gaming world as we know it.
Okay, all right. Maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'll give it a shot.